Hi there, I'm Lindsay from Super Sacred Powers Coaching. I help intuitives, sensitives, and spiritually centered people get centered into themselves, grounded into their own power, and radiantly flowing so that they can create a life full of purpose, passion, and power. Today we're going to be answering some questions from my followers from the Ask Your Intuitive Coach Lindsay section on my website. So the first question is from Feeling Him. And the question is, I'm curious as to what's going on with me. I think I'm experiencing my husband's emotions. I keep getting them mixed up with my own. I'm not sure what this is. Am I crazy? Is this a real thing? Is it telepathy? Well, feeling him. Number one, no, you're not crazy. And number two, it is a real thing. Now, if it's telepathy, you will be hearing his thoughts, and this does get into a bit of a gray area as to whether it's telepathy or if it's empathy. You really have to sit down and ask yourself what you are experiencing. And this is a key concept in all of my intuitive coaching here. Are you feeling his feelings, or are you understanding what he's thinking? And part of this gray area here is whether you understand what he's feeling. I consider that last one part of empathy, and this is more of how I work. I don't necessarily feel another person's feelings, at least not anymore, or on a daily basis. If there's an extreme situation, there's no doubt I'm going to be feeling what they're feeling, and I might even mimic it back to them because I've confused it with my own emotion, or maybe I'm just feeling mean that day. It happens even to the best of us. If you're understanding what he's thinking, you might not be understanding the full context of his reactions, because you're hearing what he's thinking, but you're not necessarily feeling the emotional connection behind it. But if you're understanding what he's feeling, you can identify, at the very least, that he's feeling a certain way. And you might even be able to understand some of his reactions, some of his words, and the context behind those words, even if you didn't hear those words necessarily in your head, or feel them in your gut, or something along those lines, while you're speaking to him, or arguing with him, or whatever kind of interaction you're having with him. But I get this question so many times, and it often takes us until we're older to really understand that not only are we sensitive or intuitive, but that we're empathic on some level, that we are accessing more information than the common person does, more than the averagely sensing person does. We have a heightened ability to, I think, do multiple things. We can read body language, we can have a high emotional IQ, but I think there's also a third component of us being able to read into the energy fields into others. That was a great question, Feeling Him. Thanks so much. Moving on to another question here. This one is from Feeling Trapped. Feeling Trapped says, I'm living with some friends now, and they are arguing all the time. I'm having anxiety attacks over all of their negativity. I can usually block things out, but not this time. I can't seem to block them out because I know them so well. Help! Well, feeling trapped. I don't have all the details here, of course, but I would like to address some common sense things before we get into the more intuitive and psychic side of this kind of advice. If you're paying rent to someone and you have your own private space with them, this is one thing, and this is a more ideal situation behind this. There is an expectation of privacy in that. if you are crashing on somebody's couch because you need to build up some more money to get your own place, your options are going to be a little bit more limited in how you're going to be able to handle the situation because you have no ownership of the home or of the situation at all because it's their arguing and it's their negativity. The focus in that situation is really going to be to stay out of their way, stay out of their energy, um, sadly to say. But here are some other tips. Now, it does sound like you have some good boundaries feeling trapped. You know these people and you aren't taking responsibility for their feelings and for their problems. And that's a good thing. That is an incredible thing for any sensitive or intuitive. We always have to walk that line between minding our own business and trying to help or fix people we like or love. Um, so it sounds like you're right on track there. You aren't taking any responsibility for this. Um, Especially if you aren't responsible for it. That's the other thing. You don't want to contribute to the situation you're in, but you don't also want to be the peacemaker all the time because they have to be responsible for not only expressing their own feelings but learning how to clear it out and clean it up afterward. But to keep it from affecting you as much, if you do have your own space in the house, something with doors and walls and not just a couch, you really want to make that space a sanctuary. And you really want to draw your shields not just around you, but you want to draw it around the whole entirety of your space. And you want to make it a sanctuary that is cleaned out regularly, whether you do that with sage or with salt washes, just salt and water, and you can either spritz or wipe down your walls to keep some of the contaminating factor of other people's energy from influencing your space. You really want to have that kind of buffer that you can retreat to if you need to. But the other thing is, in order to build that, have that buffer, and have it also be effective in not promoting the idea that their arguing is an okay thing, you want to tell them in a respectful manner as possible when they're arguing that you are then leaving the situation because you want to give them the space to work out their differences. And yes, that can be seen as hiding. So you want to do it very carefully and you want to do it considerately. I know you two are having your issues right now. I don't want to be any more of a problem in this situation. I'm going to go someplace for 30 minutes and let you guys clear the air. But then there's an expectation that you're coming back and that they have a time limit in which to finish doing whatever they're doing with their arguing or they're disagreeing or they're being disrespectful. And of course, if you are in a dangerous situation or one of your roommates is in a dangerous situation, don't let that continue. There's no good that's going to come of it. Hold the highest good always in your heart with these kinds of situations. And to be really frank, personally, I would move out. If people aren't owning up to what they're doing, if they're allowing this cycle to keep continuing and giving no respect to themselves, each other, or the other person in their home, it's going to take more than just some nice words to fix. And you owe it to your own protection, you owe it to your own personal hygiene, your psychic hygiene, your boundaries, your grounding, your shielding, to strive for something that's a little bit more peaceful and a little bit more under your own control. That was an excellent question, really. And thank you so much for trusting me to try and give you some answers. Now moving on to our last question of the segment. This is from Not Quite So Positive. You always seem to be so cheerful. Thank you, not quite so cheerful. Or not quite so positive, thank you. I'll get to that in a second, though. And positive. I have some friends like that too, but I don't seem to understand how they do it. This is an excellent question, not quite so positive. And to be honest, I'm not quite that positive. I really see myself as a more realistic person, a little bit more pragmatic than positive. But for me, at least, it comes down to mindset. You know, every morning and multiple times during the day, I have to stop and ask myself not so much what I'm feeling. I do that too. But the what's important to this and what's relevant to this question about mindset is what do I want to put out into the world? Um, I am a regular person. I have some very huge things that I need to fix about my life, and I have small things I need to fix about my daily life. But instead of dwelling on how horrible that all makes me feel on the inside to say that I have to deal with those things, I really have to refocus and reframe my mind and my heart and say, what is important about this? And if I'm going through this, someone else is probably going through something similar. And do I want to put all those feelings out there into the world? Because what we put out always comes back to us. Do I really want to put that out there? Or do I want to focus on healing myself and using that energy and those words and that perspective to help maybe bring somebody else a little bit of help, a little bit of compassion, a little bit of something needed? And that's really the trick behind the mindset. Of course, I have my pity parties. Of course, there are days when I'd rather not get out of bed or shoot a video or write a blog post or even have my consultation sessions. But I do it because this world isn't just about me. My life isn't just about how I feel right now. Those things aren't all of me. They don't define all of who I am. And I simply won't let it. And there's something freeing in that. There's a transformation when I move my focus to others who might also be suffering. And I don't do it because I'm a martyr. I do it for very personal and self-absorbed reasons. I mean, if I'm going through it, somebody else is too. That's just a matter of life. If I'm helping them, I might also be helping myself. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's a lot of what uh, rehab rehab programs are based off of, group therapy. That people who are going through something similar, or who have been through something similar, will be able to help other people through it. And I just have a little bit of trust and faith, and a little bit of validation along the way. I see others who come back and saying that I spoke just to them that day. And I know I really didn't. But I trust the intuitive side, the spiritual side of life. I trust that Spirit will get those words out to people who do need it. And that's where I really try and keep my focus. So it really isn't that I don't have problems. So please don't get lost in comparisons and don't get feeling all down about yourself because you don't seem to be this positive, rainbow-filled light person. Um, I know that the universe needs your authenticity more than it needs platitudes. What matters is that you radiate what's in your heart and your soul. That radiation of who you are, of your own light, no matter what quality it is right now in this very moment. A, it's what's needed. And B, that's part of the transformation of taking that extra step of faith. That you're going to put out what you have, and it's going to be met. and it's going to be fulfilled in some way, shape, or form. Excuse me. I have a little bit of a cold today. I'm losing my voice here. So it's really not so much that life is perfect. It's not so much of believing that life will be even better or more perfect at another point in time. It's just trusting that all of life, not just my life, but everybody's life is in some kind of process and that it is going someplace. And I don't have to necessarily equate that back to my religious views, though of course I do. It can be very humanitarian based thing that all people are going through something. So you don't have to put that spiritual spin on it, but it certainly helps, and a lot of religions certainly do teach that. So let that carry you forward, please. And this really is an excellent question because nobody's striving toward perfect perfection, or at least they shouldn't be. They shouldn't be striving to be all light and rainbows all the time because it's not real. It just isn't. It just doesn't work. What works is you, your soul, your authenticity. What you know is very much needed and very much needs to be put out into the world and heard by others. It was an excellent question, not quite so positive. Thanks for asking. Well, that's all the questions we have time for today. But if you have any questions about your sensitivities or about living life in a less than sensitive world, go to the Ask Lindsay page on www.supersecretpowers.com. The link is on the blue banner at the top of the page, and submit your question, and maybe you can find yourself on one of my videos. I want to take a few minutes here before logging off to tell you about a new course I have coming up for intuitives and sensitives. And I created this class because I had to figure my intuitive side out all on my own. I had to figure my sensitivities out, what it meant for me, and what I could do, what I could hone, what I could fix. And the books and the meditations out there, well, they didn't really help. They only got me so far because they were too general and they didn't speak to me and how I worked. And I want to offer you the chance to learn from my mistakes. I want to give you the chance to learn how to center into yourself, to ground into your own power, and to shield what matters, and to learn how to set your own boundaries and your own edges for your life. But this course, it isn't like those books or those meditations, and it's going to focus on you and your intuitive process. Now, you already know how to shield, you know how to center, and you know how to ground. I bet nobody ever told you that before. This course is going to help you find and tap into what you're already doing, the process you already have in place, and to help you refine it. You're going to have more confidence with what you do. You're going to have clarity on what you need to do to get through a day, or to get through an obstacle, or to overcome a challenge. You're just going to be better all around for already knowing and improving how you're working. And you can learn more about this course, and we'll call it my Thriving Intuitive course, at the link below. Now, I can't wait to hear from you, and I can't wait until our next little video session. So go have a super secret power day.